The air in my daughter's house was always thick with lavender spray and something cold or something I couldn't name. I had only been living with Vanessa and her husband for 4 months when the change began. The shift wasn't sudden, like a slammed door. It was slower, quieter, like the way autumn creeps into summer, one breeze at a time. And then came the day she looked at me with her perfectly lined eyes and said it either serve my husband or leave. Mom. I smiled, not out of joy, not out of sarcasm, but because it was the final crack I needed to hear myself say, "You don't belong here anymore, Helen." I suppose I should start where all sad stories begin, with hope. My name is Helen Rivers. I'm 63, a retired school principal from Virginia, widowed at 42, raised my daughter, Vanessa, alone after her father died of a heart attack while changing a tire in the rain. We didn't have much, but I gave her everything I had, every warm lunch, every late night helping with homework, every dollar that should have gone to new shoes for me, but went to her science camp instead. When she got married to Mark Lockwood, a marketing executive from Boston, I cried, not because I was losing her but because I thought she'd finally have someone to share her burdens with. But here's the thing no one tells you when your daughter gets married. You don't just hand her to someone. Sometimes you're slowly erased from the equation. Vanessa called me after I retired and said, "Why don't you come stay with us for a while, Mom? You've done so much alone. Let us spoil you a little." Spoil me. God. I wish that word had meant what I thought it did. At first, it was fine. She had prepared the guest room with fresh linens, candles, even a little welcome basket that said, "Home is where Mom is." Mark smiled, shook my hand, even poured me a glass of Pinot at dinner. I cooked that first night spaghetti with homemade garlic knots, because I knew Vanessa loved it from childhood. They thanked me, said they'd missed real food. And then, that became the expectation. By week 2, it was, "Mom, would you mind folding the laundry? Mark's been so tired lately." By week 4, "Mom, can you pick up Leo from school? I've got back-to-back meetings." By month 2, "Mom, we were thinking it'd be great if you took over the groceries and meal planning. You're just so good at it." No, please. No, if you feel up to it. Just delegation, wrapped in guilt-flavored compliments. I told myself I was helping, that it was normal to contribute. After all, I had raised Vanessa to value hard work, to take pride in her home. Maybe this was her twisted way of honoring that, but deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't a guest. I was the help. Mark stopped pretending by month 3. He would leave his coffee mug half full in the sink, look right at me and say, "Oh, Helen, you don't mind grabbing that, right? You're a godsend." He didn't ask. He commanded with a smirk that said he knew I wouldn't fight back. Vanessa laughed. "Mark, don't bully my mom," she said once, not because she meant it, but because she wanted me to play along with the joke. But I wasn't laughing. There was one night I remember vividly. I had been coughing all day, light fever, aching joints, probably just the flu. Still, I dragged myself to the stove to make dinner. Mark came home, sniffed the air, and said, "No meatloaf tonight? We've had pasta 2 nights in a row." I looked up from the pot and said gently, "I wasn't feeling well today. Thought I'd make something lighter." He didn't even respond, just walked out of the kitchen like I was invisible. Vanessa didn't say a word. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it tick with every rotation. Tick, 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 like it was counting down something. Then came the morning I'd remember for the rest of my life. Vanessa had just come downstairs. Mark was at the table, scrolling through his phone like always. I had made scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee despite my back hurting from yesterday's grocery run. Vanessa sat, took one bite, and looked at Mark. "Babe, did you get the forms printed?" Mark looked up at me, not at Vanessa, and said, "Oh, right. Helen, could you swing by FedEx today? There's a contract I need picked up." That was it. That was the line. Not because of the errand, but because of the tone, the entitlement, the way my daughter didn't even blink. I said softly, "I think I've done enough running around." Mark looked up, amused. "Excuse me?" That's when Vanessa put her fork down and said, "Look, Mom, we appreciate everything, but if you're going to be here, you either help out, meaning help him, too, or..." She paused, looked at Mark, "Or maybe it's time to think about going back to Virginia." There it was, the ultimatum, servitude, or exile, and I smiled, not because I was happy, but because, in that one moment, I saw her for who she had become. Not my daughter, not anymore. She was a stranger who had forgotten how I spent 35 years serving, without asking for a thank you, and now she wanted more. I stood up slowly, wiped my hands on a towel, looked them both in the eyes and said, "You're right." Mark leaned back, smug. "Wait, what?" I walked upstairs, opened my suitcase, packed my things in neat little folds, 1 toothbrush, 3 sweaters, 35 years of love, dissolved in silence. Vanessa didn't come up. She just stayed in the kitchen while I zipped up the life I had once shared with her. I paused by the door, looked around one last time. The lavender spray, the silence, the cracks, and then I walked out. The silence after I left and the life I built without them before I closed the cab door that morning. I looked up at the house one last time. No one followed me out. No one tried to stop me. Not my daughter, not her husband, not even little Leo. That was when I realized I had not been living in a home. I had been haunting one. The ride to the station was quiet. I stared out the window at the rows of perfect suburban homes, same porches, same manicured lawns, same soulless symmetry. The cab driver tried to make small talk, but I just smiled and nodded. I wasn't ready to speak. Not yet. I booked a one-way ticket to a small town in Connecticut. Waterbury, quiet, green, humble. I'd passed through it once 20 years ago and remembered thinking, if I ever run away from life, I want it to be to a place like this. Now, I wasn't running. I was reclaiming. The first week, I stayed at a modest inn run by a widow named Evelyn Grant. She was 67, silver-haired, and had the kind of smile that looked like it had been broken and put back together stronger than before. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a room key and said, "If you need company, there's lemon cake downstairs." I needed more than cake, but kindness was a good start. Every morning, I took walks, no chores, no grocery lists, no errands barked at me across the breakfast table, just the crunch of leaves beneath my feet, and the sound of my own thoughts, finally breathing again. By week 2, I was helping Evelyn in the inn's kitchen, not because anyone asked me to, but because I wanted to. "There's a difference, you know," she said. "You've got good hands, graceful, teacher's hands." I smiled and told her I used to be a principal. She chuckled. "No wonder you're still standing after whatever storm brought you here." One afternoon, she took me to the Maplewood Community Center. They were looking for part-time help, someone to assist with adult literacy classes. I hadn't taught in years, but when I walked into that center, something flickered inside me. The smell of dry erase markers, the soft murmur of people trying, the light of possibility in old eyes. Terrence White, the director, interviewed me for 5 minutes and said, "We could use someone like you, Helen." And just like that, I wasn't a burden. I wasn't a maid. I was needed for who I was. At night, I'd write letters I never sent, to Vanessa, to Leo, letters filled with memories, not accusations. I remember when you broke your arm trying to climb the garden fence. You were so brave. I remember when you called me your hero for fighting the school board over budget cuts. But I never sent them, because these were my memories, and not everyone deserves to keep what they've forgotten. Meanwhile, back in Boston, I heard the unraveling began, not from Vanessa, of course not, but from a neighbor of theirs who followed me on Facebook after I posted photos of a book fair we hosted at the community center. She messaged me privately, "I hope you're okay. Things look tense at your daughter's place. Heard Mark got let go, and I never see Leo outside anymore." Let go. That explained a lot. I could imagine it perfectly. The passive-aggressive jokes gone bitter, the short tempers, the blame games, the way silence becomes a language all its own. I wasn't happy about it, contrary to what they may have believed. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted peace. Months passed. I redecorated a small 2-bedroom rental on Elm Street, painted the walls pale blue, hung up old family photos not for sentiment, but for closure. I taught 3 classes a week. I made soup on Sundays. I joined a book club full of retired women who still wore red lipstick and told scandalous stories. And I laughed. God, I laughed again. One day in early spring, I was teaching a reading session when my phone buzzed. Vanessa. I stared at the name on the screen like it belonged to someone else. I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, a voicemail. I didn't listen to it for 2 days. When I finally did, it said, "Hi, Mom. I don't know what to say. I've been meaning to call. Mark lost his job. Things have been hard. Leo misses you. I miss you. I didn't mean what I said. Can we talk?" I sat there, phone in hand, and felt nothing, not anger, not joy, just a quiet knowing. She wasn't calling because she missed me. She was calling because she needed me again, and the difference mattered. That night, Evelyn poured me tea and asked gently, "You gonna go back?" I said, no. She didn't push, didn't pry, just nodded and said, "Good." But I did write a letter. Not one filled with memories this time, but truth. "Vanessa, I love you. I always will. But love without respect is just bondage. You made a choice. And so did I. I am not angry anymore, but I am done being convenient. I will always be here. But I won't come back to a house that saw me as help. I hope you find what you're missing. Love, Mom." I mailed it the next morning, not because I wanted her to read it, but because I needed to release it. It's strange, isn't it? How sometimes leaving isn't the hard part. Staying gone is. She regretted the ultimatum, but I was no longer hers to command. There's something cruel about regret. Not the loud kind, the kind that hits you in the silence between moments, like when you open the fridge and realize there's no one else to cook for, or when a child asks why grandma doesn't visit anymore, and you don't have the words to answer. I didn't hear from Vanessa again for 3 months after I sent that letter. Then one Thursday afternoon, just after my adult literacy class had ended, my phone rang. It was her. Again. This time, I answered. "Mom?" Her voice was smaller than I remembered. Not weak, just tired. "Hi, Vanessa." I kept my voice steady, kind but not warm. "I got your letter," she said. There was a pause. One of those heavy, shame-filled pauses where the heart can barely move under the weight of everything, and said, "I didn't know how bad I'd gotten. I thought I was just asking for help." "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "You were demanding it. You were trading guilt for gratitude. Mark and we separated," she admitted. I didn't gasp. I didn't judge. I had seen that storm forming from the first moment I watched him hand me a grocery list. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said quietly. "Are you all right?" She sniffled, trying to be. "Leo's confused. He asked about you yesterday. Said he missed your pancakes." That one cracked me. Not because I miss being needed, but because I miss being loved. She asked if she could visit. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to see her, but because I needed to be sure that she was ready to see me, not as a resource, not as a fallback, not as a built-in servant, but as a woman, as a mother who had survived alone for decades and deserved better. She came the next Sunday. She brought Leo. He ran into my arms like no time had passed at all, his little hands wrapped around my waist, and for the first time in a year, I felt home. In someone's hug. Vanessa stood back awkwardly. Her makeup was lighter, her posture softer. There was no designer bag, no phone glued to her hand. Just her, my little girl, stripped of pride, standing in the ruins of a life she once thought was perfect. We sat on the porch. I made tea. She looked around my small cozy home and said, "You seem happy." I nodded. "I am." She didn't speak for a long while. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. I didn't see what I was doing until it was too late." I didn't rush to forgive her. I didn't wrap her in some movie scene hug. I just let the words sit there, let her feel them raw and unpolished. "You know," I said slowly, "there's a kind of sorrow in realizing your own child doesn't see you as a person anymore." She looked up, her eyes wet. "I do now. I see you. I promise." I believed her. But believing and rebuilding are two very different things. We spent the afternoon together. I showed Leo my garden. He loved the carrots. We baked together. He spilled flour everywhere. And for once, I didn't care. Vanessa watched us quietly, didn't take over, didn't apologize every 5 minutes. She just let me be. Let us be. Before she left, she asked, "Could we maybe do this again?" I thought for a long moment, then said, "Yes, but you'll visit my home now. I'm not moving back into that house, not as a guest, not as a live and help. If you want your mother in your life, she comes as herself, or not at all." She nodded. "I understand. I do." As they drove away, Leo waved from the back seat. I waved back, smiling. But it wasn't the kind of smile I wore the day I left. It was different. It was mine. Now, every few weeks, they visit, sometimes for a few hours, sometimes just for a walk. Sometimes for Sunday pancakes. There's no pressure, no lists, no ultimatums, just time, pure, mutual, honest time. I know we may never go back to what we were, and maybe we're not meant to, because what we're building now is rooted in truth, not guilt, in respect, not obligation. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt unseen, unappreciated, erased in your own family, please know, you can leave without rage, you can heal without begging, and you can reclaim your peace without asking permission. I am Helen Rivers, and the day I walked away from the people I loved most was the day I walked back to myself.